Okay. So now we are starting the proper topics of paper 1 in UGC NET examination. Unit 1. Unit 1 is regarding teaching aptitude. The first are concept of teaching, objectives of teaching, levels of teaching, characteristics of teaching, and basic requirements for teaching. These are the first set of topics. This goes like this. Go to the preliminaries in the beginning and we'll come to the individual theories later. So don't think if we talk about levels of teaching, if we are looking to some levels of teaching, don't think with what we discussed now everything is over. Again, regarding this, theories of various other social scientists comes later also. So it is a continuum. It is a continuum. It's not like completing a topic at a stretch at one time. It does not happen. So don't think too deep into the aspects at every point of time. It goes as a continuum. And more importantly, what you should understand is that it's not a thorough, in-depth study of each and every topic in this subject. That's the case. We go a little bit superficially and also more statistically. This is what is required for UGC NET examination. Because if we go into the depths, this covers the entire syllabus of and MEd courses. That is not possible now. That is not our motive. We want to just get introduced to the different topics. That's the thing. So in teaching aptitude, aptitude means they want to test your aptitude. Do you have a proper aptitude and proper attitude towards teaching? Because basically, this test is conducted for selecting people for the assistant professor's post, which is a teacher's post basically. So you have the proper aptitude and the right attitude to take up a teacher's profession. They want to test it. Therefore, they want to test if you are introduced to all topics regarding teaching and learning. What is teaching? What is teaching? Teaching is imparting some knowledge and imparting some information, transferring some information to the learner. What all about teaching is a teacher, a learner. These two are the main aspects here concerned with teaching. And then there is another important thing which is connected with teaching process. That is the curriculum. Means what teaching there, what student is learning there, and what are the methods you are using in that process, and what is the material you are using in that process, and how you are deciding for the subject to be transferred, and all these things, they make curriculum of teaching. So the entire thing which goes around teaching is teaching, learning, and the curriculum involved in this process. This is what is involved here, and we are going to read about that. So initially, what is the concept of teaching? What is meant by teaching? In other words, how teaching is defined. Let us see how teaching is defined by various people in various connections. Let us look into that. I'm muting all the participants. If anyone wants to question or make a dialogue, please unmute yourself, talk, and again mute after you are done with. I am muting that. Now, how teaching is defined, we will see here. These are all very important things, that though they do not look like that, we cannot expect how a question is asked. When you read so much about teaching, the question may be simply giving a definition and who defined teaching like this, and 4 options like Morrison, Smith, Gage, and Emerson. Then you should know that. Therefore, you should know everything. As I said in the afternoon, every sentence and every word which we read here can make a question as far as the multiple choice questions are concerned. Therefore, please follow carefully. Anything is important. Any simple point is important, and that makes a question. Now, how teaching is defined? This is defined. We have given definitions given by some people only. There are many other definitions also, but most important things and which are repeatedly asked in examinations only we have considered, because we cannot also look into all the definitions and take on our mind all the definitions. So the first person, Morrison, defined teaching as teacher influences the behavior of less experienced people. Less experienced pupil. Here, there are teachers, there are pupils, they are learners, they are students. So these people receive some knowledge from the teacher. Teacher here is a more experienced person. The pupil is an amateur boy, an amateur person. So he receives knowledge from the teacher. Simply, this is the definition of teaching. Teacher influences the behavior of less experienced pupil. Here, the another important thing is influences the behavior of less experienced pupil. Why I stress on such things, such minor things as it appears is behavior means when I say only this sentence, this same thing, he will give in other terms. The psychology of a pupil is handled by the teacher. This is saying the same thing in other words. At times, questions come like this. These are included in the definitions given by various people, and I will give some 5 or 6 or 7 options. You have to tick which are correct. In that, he may say, teacher influences the psychology of a pupil. He can say like that. That is important. So when I say influences the behavior of less experienced people, you should be able to get on your mind all the alternative words for this behavior, because after all, teaching and learning is not all about lessons and academic curriculum. It also deals with psychological things, social things, physiological things, psychomotor things. All these things are involved in teaching learning process. Therefore, teacher influences the behavior of less experienced people in so many aspects, in so many angles. The less experienced pupil would be trained by the student, means he handles the behavior, the overall behavior of a student, and finally he presents a very, very valuable citizen to the society. This is what is the aim of teaching learning process. So this is the definition given by Morrison. And then Smith has defined it as an organized system of activities to help learner learn something. Learning happens in the absence of teacher also. See, this is an organized system of activities to help learner learn something. Here, what is all expected is that the learner or the student learns something from what the teacher is transferring to him. So the ultimate motive is that the student should learn something. Otherwise, it makes no sense in coming to a teaching learning environment. It makes no sense. Therefore, the ultimate aim is that he should learn something from what the teacher conveys. This is the definition given by Smith. And learning happens in the absence of teacher also. This teaching learning process, we should not simply understand it that teaching learning process goes only in a classroom or with a teacher and a learner. It's not the case. Teaching is a permanent process. Every moment it goes on. In everyone's life, teaching would be going, teaching learning process would be going on. For example, a small child learns so many things looking at his parents first, and then looking at his fraternity, and then looking at his peer groups. So like this, everything is learning. Everything is learning. Learning is not necessarily through a teacher. You learn at every step of your life. You will be learning things. So this learning, teaching goes on always. It's an endless process. That's why he says learning happens in the absence of teacher also. It is necessary. It is not necessary that a teacher should be there for someone to learn something. This is the important aspect. Learning happens in the absence of a teacher also. This is the definition given by Smith. Then Gage. It's a personal relationship between the teacher and the taught, causing behavior modification in the taught. The taught means the student or the pupil. And then the teacher. The teacher and the student, here he defines as a personal relationship. He gives it such a value that the teacher should feel that he is responsible for bringing out a student with a proper behavior. and present him to the into the society. This is what a teacher should feel. This is what is attitude of a teacher. What the attitude of a teacher should be is this. Therefore, he says it's a personal relationship. Personal relationship means like the relationship between own family members. That is the relationship between teacher and student. Taught causing behavior modification. There would be so many, perversions in course of a child getting up. Yeah, in bringing up a child, there will be so many perversions, diversions, and all these things the teacher should correct, and he should put him on the right track and properly mold his behavior. This is the what is expected of a teacher. Therefore, it is called a personal relationship between teacher and the taught, and that is the student. This is the definition given by Gaj. And then Amundsen says it's a process of interaction between teacher and the taught. Activities are perfectly planned and well defined to achieve required objectives. When teaching is conducted, definitely there will be some objectives, there will be some goals which you want to achieve. Towards that only this teaching learning process goes on. So during the process of teaching learning, it is an interaction between the teacher and the student. Teacher conveys something, student can understand or cannot understand. If he cannot understand, he puts some questions and he receives answers from the teacher. And the teacher at times also puts some questions to the student to test whether he is following what he is saying or not. So this is what is called a transaction or an interaction. This is what is also termed in terms of in the topic of communication. There's a transactional communication. There is a transaction going between the student and the teacher. That is generally in the general term is an interaction. And in terms of the communication subject, it is called a transactional communication. So it's a communication going on between the two teacher and student. This is how Amundsen defined what is teaching learning process is. Then Clark defined it as teaching is aimed at modifying the behavior of the learner. More or less, you can see the central idea of all the definitions given by these people is one thing, that it is an overall modification of behavior of the learner, just not imparting some lessons or academic routine. That's not what all teaching means. Teaching is ultimately modifying the behavior of a learner and bringing out a person with an excellent character, with an excellent attitude, and present him to the society as a responsible citizen. This is the central idea, how teaching is defined. And then next we go to the next slide. Some general things I'm saying here already I have covered in what I have been talking now. The process of learning is lifelong. This is what I said. It goes on lifelong. And also at all points of time, it will be going on. Knowingly or unknowingly it goes. That is the important thing. And then teaching and learning are two interrelated processes. What is meant by interrelated processes? Interrelated processes means learning happens when a teacher conveys something, teaches something, learning happens. At the same time, while teaching, the teacher also learns. Not only the taught learns, but the teacher also learns while teaching. Now I am teaching something to you. You got a doubt. You raised a question. Perhaps I may not be knowing precisely the answer to that question. Then I'll verify. I'll know. I'll be learning. Otherwise, from your question, new ideas may come into my brain. And like that, the teacher also learns. So the teaching and learning is a simultaneous process. While teaching goes on, learning happens with the student as well as with the teacher also. This is what is called, they are interrelated processes. And then one of the sole aims of teaching is to bring out some positive transformation in students with the enhancement of students' knowledge base. Knowledge base, you know, with reference to various topics and various points, various subjects, naturally enhancing the student's knowledge base, imparting him some knowledge in various topics in which he is involved. And then apart from this, what is all important, as we have already seen in the above definitions also, some positive transformation. Transformation means if there are certain students with some falsehood, They will be transformed into the right line. They will be kept on the right tracks. This also happens in the teaching learning process. All teaching should focus on enhancing the learning outcomes of students. See here, all teaching should focus on enhancing the learning outcomes of students. Means whatever you teach, it should be helpful to the student in gaining something in excess of what he already knows. If he does not gain something which he does not know, if he does not gain a new knowledge, there's no point in the teaching itself. So whatever the student knows, the learning outcome should be something more than what already he has in his knowledge base. This is important. And then while teaching, a teacher also learns. This I have already explained this. So coming to the next slide. See, at times in examinations, questions are also given like this. So I have collected some 4 names, important names. These are some great teachers. The preparation for this UGC NET examination will be like this. You don't think like an academic routine. It goes in a chapter wise and topic wise like this. We'll be haphazardly learning several things here and there, here and there. It goes like that. We haphazard, and we have to bear all these points in our brain to the extent that enough. You need not totally recall them and write by yourself. Enough if you can recognize from the options given. To that extent, if you can memorize them, that is more. It is easy to do that. So some great teachers are Confucius. He is the first private teacher. Apart from the organizational teaching, he is the first private teacher who took up tuitions. He is Confucius. And then Friedrich Frobel. Every one of us know this. Every one of us knows this. He is the founder of the kindergarten school system. Kindergarten, KG and lower KG, higher KG, upper KG, lower KG. So that kindergarten system schooling is founded by Friedrich Frobel. And then John Amos Comenius, he is father of the modern education. He is called the father of the modern education. All these modern systems of education, which we are going to see in detail as we go forward. So for all this, the founder is John Amos Comenius. Then Savitribai Phule, she is very much known. She is the first female teacher of the first female school in India. These are the things which you have to keep in your mind. They can happen as questions also. Then, what are the objectives of teaching? Objective of teaching is always, this is in the first place, to bring the desired changes in pupils. Desired changes means behavioral aspects. That is very, very important, behavioral aspects. Then, to shape the behavior and conduct. And then acquisition of knowledge by the student. You have to impart him some knowledge also. That is the main motive. Apart from that, what is more important is to shape his character, to shape his attitude, and to shape him into a very, very, very ideal and responsible citizen. Then, to improve learning skills of students, there are various stages of learning. In different learning, different procedures go. We will now see further all those things. So as you go forward, the teacher has to impart how he can improve by himself. That means he has to impart him certain skills, certain tips to improve by himself, not always depending upon the teacher. Then formation of belief. This is what I said is very, very important, and which everyone knows. We should never lose belief in ourselves. Whatever we do, you should always have belief in yourself. So that belief, if that belief is strong, definitely you can push forward in any field. That is important. And then to provide a social and efficient member to the society. I have been saying this, the ultimate aim of teaching learning process is not just an academic routine, but the teacher should be able to properly shape the behavior of the student and present it to the society as a very responsible and a value-filled person, individual. This is the essence of major objectives of teaching. And then levels of teaching. What are these levels of teaching? I said teaching happens in every stage, every moment, all through the life. This is what is teaching, how teaching goes. Even at this point of time, we'll be learning. It may be knowingly or unknowingly. Learning always goes on. So what are the levels of teaching? Now this learning goes from the child level to the young level. It goes on. So depending upon various levels, the teaching processes, the teaching classifications would be changing. How these change? Here, this is where I said I'll give you what are the various levels defined with reference to various factors or various parameters. Don't think too deep into this. I am giving you a general overview of these levels of teaching and how levels of teaching are classified with reference to several factors, social factors. So this is important. And all these things we will be reading one by one as we go forward with reference to the theories developed by various learned people. Now you see, based on teaching levels, teaching level means a teacher, he is training a student, he is training a pupil. This happens at memory level, understanding level, reflective level. There are 3 levels defined based on teaching levels. Teaching levels means it's a formal teaching between a teacher and a student. That is a teaching, formal teaching. And on this basis, the teaching is divided into 3 varieties. One is memory level teaching, understanding level teaching, and reflective level teaching. Here I'll give you only a brief about this. Memory level teaching means here, this is for children. Memory level means it's a rote learning. You know, rote learning means by memorization. బట్టి పట్టేసి నేర్చుకోవటము అన్నమాట. ఇది చిన్నపిల్లల్లో జరుగుతుంది. చూడండి, మనకి చిన్నప్పుడు మనకు తెలిసిన ఎలిమెంటరీ స్కూల్లో ఏం చేస్తారండి, ప్రోజ్ ఉంటే ఒక పారాగ్రాఫ్ టిక్ పెట్టేసి ఒరే రేపు ఇది అప్పచెప్పరా, లేదు ఒక 2 పద్యాలు టిక్ పెట్టేసి 2 పద్యాలు అప్పచెప్పరా, ఇట్లా ఇచ్చేస్తూ ఉంటారు. విత్ చిల్డ్రన్ దిస్ ఓన్లీ హ్యాపెన్స్ బికాస్ అతని దగ్గర ఇంకా థాట్ ప్రాసెస్ అనేది డెవలప్ అవ్వదు. చిన్నపిల్లవాడు వాడు థాట్ ప్రాసెస్ ఉండదు. మనం ఏం చెప్తే అది వింటాడు వాడు, అంతే. అంచేత అటువంటి వాడు చెప్పేదాన్ని దీన్ని మెమరీ లెవెల్ అంటాం. కేవలం వాడిని ఎంతసేపు మెమరీ, వాళ్ళకి మెమరీ చాలా బాగుంటుంది కనుక ఆ ఏజ్ లో మెమరీ వాడికి డెవలప్ అయ్యేలాగా వాడి చేత ఎక్సర్సైజ్ చేస్తూ ఉంటాడు టీచరు. డీటెయిల్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇట్ విల్ సీ ఫర్దర్. అండ్ అండర్స్టాండింగ్ లెవెల్ ఈజ్ ఏ హయ్యర్ లెవెల్ దాన్ మెమరీ లెవెల్. వెన్ యూ కమ్ here you will be understanding the concepts. Just not by teaching, by yourself you should be able to analyze the concepts and the facts, and you have to understand things by yourself. This is this level. Reflective level, this is the highest level of learning and highest level of teaching. Here the teacher's role is practically very, very limited. The student would be asked to decide his own problem and solve it for himself. The teacher only acts as a guide here. He is only a mentor here, but not a teacher actually. Teaching, not much teaching is here at this level. The student is made to be self-capacitated to identify problems and solve the problems for himself. This is what is called reflective level teaching. We will see the details further. Then, based on teaching objectives. Objective means what is the ultimate goal you want to take out of that. Objective is that. See, with that, there are 3 points, factors with which an objective is fixed. One is called cognitive, the other one is affective, and the other one is a psychomotor. These are the 3 levels as per the objectives here. Here objective is not an academic, exclusively not an academic routine here. It is cognitive, means brain mechanism. They want to develop your brain activity, your thinking capacities, your identification, your analysis, your problem solving capacities. These are all these relate to your cognitive mechanism. This is called cognitive mechanism, means relating to the brain. And then the other one is effective mechanism. This relates to your heart. That means మనస్ అంటామే. యాక్చువల్గా హార్ట్ కంటే మనస్సు అనేది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ అనమాట. ఇది ఏమిటంటే బ్రెయిన్ అంటే ఇంటలెక్ట్, బుద్ధి. ఇది బుద్ధికి సంబంధించినటువంటిది కాగ్నిటివ్ ట్రైనింగ్, కాగ్నిటివ్ టీచింగ్. మనస్సుకి సంబంధించినటువంటిది ఎఫెక్టివ్ టీచింగ్. ఈ మనస్సు దగ్గరికి వచ్చేటప్పటికి యూ కమింగ్ టు యాటిట్యూడ్స్. అక్కడ యాటిట్యూడ్ కరెక్షన్స్ అనేవి ఇక్కడ వస్తాయి అన్నమాట. మూడోది ఏమిటంటే సైకో మోటార్. ఇవేమిటంటే మోటార్ మెకానిజం. మోటార్ మెకానిజం అంటే మన ఫిజిక్ అనమాట. మన ఫిజికల్ అంటే కొందరు ఫిజికల్ యాక్టివిటీస్ బోల్డ్ అని ఉంటే ఒక యాక్టర్ చేసేది ఫిజికల్ యాక్టివిటీ, ఒక లేబరర్ చేసేది ఫిజికల్ యాక్టివిటీ, ఒక పెయింటర్ చేసేది ఫిజికల్ యాక్టివిటీ, ఇటువంటివన్నీ ఉన్నాయి కదా. ఒక డాన్సర్ చేసేది ఫిజికల్ యాక్టివిటీ, ఒక ఫైటర్ చేసేది ఫిజికల్ యాక్టివిటీ. ఇవన్నీ సైకోమోటర్ యాక్టివిటీస్ కింద వస్తాయి. వాటిల్లో టీచింగ్ అన్నమాట ఇది. సో ఆబ్జెక్టివ్ ఈజ్ టు షేప్ ఎ వెరీ గుడ్ psychomotor mechanism in the students here to develop a very good attitude and all those things, attitudinal things here, and here to develop your thinking capacities and your problem solving capacities in cognitive levels. So these are based on teaching objectives. There are again 3 types of teaching learning processes. And then based on existing political system, this is drawing a comparison that does not actually involve any political systems here. These names are taken from the political systems. We know autocratic system, democratic system, and laissez-faire system. These things we know. These are the political systems. Actually, what does it mean? Autocratic means it's an authoritative system, authoritarian. In other words, we can say authoritarian means here one person rules and the other person follows. This is what is autocratic system. This is first founded by Morrison as far as teaching learning process is concerned. Details we'll see later. But this you can by now you should have understood that this is relating to a memory level. Here the teacher is autocratic. The teacher is like a dictator. He says everything. He has to design what is to be taught and how it is to be taught. All these things, it is the teacher has to be active by himself only. Here there is no role for the student at all. They are children. So this autocratic system of teaching learning process relates to memory level. Similarly, democratic means it's a transactional. There's a relation between the teacher and the student. There's a transaction between the teacher and the student. This relates to understanding level. And laissez-faire means, laissez-faire, you know, laissez-faire means allow him to do what he wants. That's all. That means project solving things, problem solving things, and then case study things, which are done by the student himself. The teacher is only a guide. Here, the role of the teacher is very, very limited, and the role of the student is supreme here. He should be able to solve problems for himself. This is the thing. So this is these terms are taken from the political system. So this is the classification of teaching learning process with reference to political systems. Then, based on nature of teaching, how you impart, how you make a teaching, this is important. One is descriptive, second one is diagnostic, third one is remedial. Descriptive means you can take a classroom teaching or any sort of lecturing or a discussion method, whatever. All these things come under descriptive systems. And then diagnostic systems is, this involves certain questioning methods, testing methods, and all those things. And you will diagnose the students where they are strong and where they are weak, just to understand the weak holds, the weak points of the students, and trying to put in extra effort to pull him up in that area and make him a sufficiently intelligent boy. So this is diagnostic. You do know what are the strongholds and what are the weak pits of students. This is diagnostic system. The third one is remedial. Remedial system, we should have understood. After diagnosis, we try to remedy the shortfalls or the weak holes. So that's the another system here. So these are the 3 things with reference to the nature of teaching. Next, based on educational processes. When teaching learning process goes, in teaching, teaching is done in various ways. One is presentation. Presentation means lecturing methods. You will lecture, you will explain the lessons, you will explain the topic subjects, and he just transfers some information to the student. That is presentation. Demonstration means he will be showing things, he will be using teaching aids. By using teaching aids and by conducting experiments and by demonstrating things which he is saying, which mostly goes in respect of mathematics and science subjects, that is called a demonstration type of teaching. The third one is action. The action means what we refer to technically is called role playing. Here, the students are given different roles, and the teacher asks them to just enact their portions as if they are in those roles. So by playing the roles, this is what is called role playing. By playing the roles, they learn. This is what is called the action type of teaching learning process. And then based on educational management. Educational management is how you impart education, how education is managed in a teaching learning process, how learning is done. This is formal, non-formal, and informal. Formal means a classroom teaching. Formally, a school, an environment, a classroom, teaching aids, and a regular type of teaching learning process is formal. Non-formal. Non-formal means not necessarily formally in a classroom. The boy is going, the student is going in a veranda, or he is going in the school garden. He comes across a teacher, he can question him there. This is what we call a non-formal teaching learning process. And informal means in parties, not with teacher. This is not with teacher. Informal, when we go to a party or when we have a gathering among friends or relatives, when it happens, so there also a teaching learning thing happens. That is informal teaching learning process. So these are depending upon the fact of management, educational management. And then these are the other things to be known here. Teaching variables. There are variables, what we refer as variables here. You know what is variable? Variable means which are the things dependent on each other. They are variables. In a particular system of action, there are certain entities which depend on each other. While depending, so one can be an independent thing and the other can be a dependent thing. These are called variables. So what are the variables, various variables involved in the teaching learning process? They are independent variable, dependent variable, and the curriculum, which is called intervening variable. What is independent variable here? Independent variable means it is a teacher. Teacher is independent here. He does not depend on the student. After all, in this teaching learning process, what all we have, as we have already discussed, is only a teacher, a learner, and the curriculum, a learning curriculum. These are the three entities available here. So these three are dependent on each other. How? Which is the independent variable in this, which is the dependent variable in this, and which is the other variable in this. So the independent variable here is teacher, because it is the teacher who takes all decisions regarding the curriculum, who imparts the knowledge to the students, and who carries on the teaching process. What about student? Student is called a dependent variable. So the dependent variable means he depends on the teacher. Unless the teacher says him, he does not know anything. He is an amateur person and the teacher is an experienced person. So he becomes a dependent variable. Then what is meant by intervening variable? For a transaction, as I said, we call it a transactional communication between the teacher and the student. For this transactional communication to happen, we require a medium. What is that medium? That is called intervening variable. Here, what is the medium? It is the syllabus frame or the study material given or any other books and all these things. They come as intervening variables. These are called intervening variables. So in the teaching learning process, the factors involved are independent variable, dependent variable, and an intervening variable. Teacher is the independent variable, student is the dependent variable, and the curriculum, regular curriculum, academic curriculum is the intervening variable. This is a very, very important classification, and this is normally asked in every examination. Who is an independent variable? Teacher, students, etc., etc. He writes. So this is an important thing. You have to understand this. And then functions of teaching variables. These teaching variable functions are diagnosis, prescription, and evaluation. These are all you can understand right by seeing their nomenclatures itself. Diagnosis is, this is at the time of admission of a student. You will diagnose at the point of admission a student, at which level he can be admitted into an education system, into a teaching learning process. At which level can he be admitted? You diagnose it and you know it. Then prescription. Then you prescribe him. What do you prescribe? Depending on the diagnosis, you are fit to join this class. You are fit to make a study about this particular academic curriculum, and you will prescribe him, and then evaluation. After this process of learning, teaching and learning, you will evaluate how far he has come, how far your diagnosis and prescription are correct from the teacher side, and from the student side, how far he is benefited by this diagnosis, prescription, and all these things you can know by evaluation. These things happen. So these are the various levels of teaching and how teaching is classified based on various factors, as we have seen here. So the next thing is, now we are going a little bit in detail. You see, just we'll go to the previous. The first one is, I said, you don't worry about the depth of the subject at each level. You understand just to the extent we are discussing. That is enough. If you go further deep into the subject, you will be confused, and it is not necessary. Your examination is concerned only with your knowledge, whether you know it over the breadth of the subject, not very deep into the subject, as I already said. Here, we see, just we'll touch the subjects in a little detail. We said based on teaching levels, we have 3 levels: memory level, understanding level, and reflective level. What these things mean exactly, we go a little deep into this. Here, we'll go to the next slide. Here I am showing memory level. Levels of teaching. This is founded by Maurice L. Buguet. He says teaching learning situations may be characterized to all on a continuum ranging from memory level to reflective level. This is what he has opined. This is what he has given out. Means when we say memory level, understanding level, and reflective level, don't think that this is to a particular group of people, this is to a particular group of people, and like that. It's not like that. In everyone's life, everyone proceeds through all these 3 stages. Initially, he goes through the memory level teaching. Next, he goes to the understanding level teaching. And after that, he goes to the reflective level teaching. This happens in the lifespan of each and every individual. This is what is said here. Teaching learning situations may be characterized. And this teaching learning process goes on as a continuum from memory to understanding level, and understanding level to reflecting level, in respect of each and every citizen from memory level to this, characterized to all for each and every individual. This is what is said by Maurice L. Buguet. So now he is saying we are going into a little detail about memory level. Memory level teaching is the lowest level of teaching. There is not much to be done by teacher here, but whatever little is done by the teacher only. Absolutely, student has no role here. The entire role is with the teacher, and the teacher should decide what is to be given to the student and how to design that, how to train this is what is called a training level. We will come to that later. Training level. He has to train, like we train our puppies. We train children also. There is no difference between a puppy and a child at the level of training. That is what is memory level. Before memory level, in fact, training is a little even before memory level, even before school level. So here the teacher is the supreme. Student absolutely has no role here. Kanaka, this is the lowest level of teaching. There's not much work to the teaching here. The teacher's role is more active rather than being interactive. Here, there is nothing like an interaction or a transactional communication between the student and the teacher. The teacher only says, the child only listens to that, and he goes according how teacher says to him to act. That is done. Then structuring, guiding, and closely supervising the student's behavior predominates. See, this is done by the teacher only. What is structuring means what is to be given to the imparted to the student, and how the student is to be guided, and how he is getting guided. He should be closely watched, very closely supervised to check the student develop in the right direction. So this is what is what happens at the memory level. This predominates, this structuring, guiding, and supervision predominates in this memory level of teaching. That no thinking is involved, absolutely no thinking, because At this level, the children have no brain activity here. They cannot think. The thinking process is not developed in those boys. The next thing, it is just a rote learning by memorization. బట్టి పెట్టేయడమే చిన్నప్పుడు మనం పద్యాలు. కానీ వండర్ఫుల్ థింగ్ ఈజ్, ఇక్కడ మనం ఇది చాలా చిన్నది, ఏదో టీచర్ ఇస్తాడు బట్టి పడతాడు అనుకుంటాం. అప్పుడు బట్టి పట్టింది ఇప్పటి వరకు నేను మర్చిపోయిన పద్యాలు ఉంటాయి మనకు అందరికీ, నాకని కాదు అందరికీ. సుమతి శతకాలు, వేమన శతకాలు, ఎట్సెట్రా ఎట్సెట్రా ఏవి మర్చిపోం మనం. అలాగే మనం చిన్నప్పుడు చూసిన మోగ మనసు సినిమాలో పాటలు ఇవన్నీ గుర్తుంటాయి మనకి. నిన్న చూసిన సినిమాలో ఒక్క పాట ఇవాళ మనకు గుర్తుండదు. ఇవాళ మనకి ఒక 4 లైన్లు ఇచ్చి బట్టి పట్టి రేపొద్దున చూడకుండా రాయరంటే మనం చేయలేము ఆ పని. సో ఇట్స్ నాట్ ఈజీ. ఇట్ ఈస్ సో ఇంపార్టెంట్. మెమరీ లెవెల్ ఆల్సో ఈజ్ సో వైటల్ అండ్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ దట్ how he trains his memory there, that takes him through his life. In his further stages of his life, his development depends upon his memory level performance. For example, మన అవధానులు వీళ్ళు ఉంటారు చూడండి, వీళ్ళు ఆ మెమరీ లెవెల్ మీద ఇప్పటిదాకా బతుకుతూ ఉంటారు కదండి. ఇంత గొప్ప మనకి ఈ ప్రవచనాలు చెప్పేవాళ్ళు, ఇన్ని సాంస్క్రిట్ శ్లోకాలు, తెలుగు పద్యాలు అవలీలుగా చూడకుండా వందల పేజీలు చెప్పేస్తూ ఉంటారు వాళ్ళు. ఎట్లా చేస్తారండి ఇదంతా? వాళ్ళు చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి అదే లైన్ లో డెవలప్ అయ్యారనమాట వాళ్ళు. సో చూడండి, వాళ్ళు ఈ రోజున ఎక్కడున్నారు? వాళ్ళు దే ఆర్ కన్సిడర్డ్ టు బి ఇంటలెక్చువల్స్ కదా. అంచేత ఇందులో ఏ లెవెల్ని తక్కువగా చూడడానికి వీల్లేదు. ఎవ్రీ లెవెల్ మేక్స్ ఎ ఫౌండేషన్ ఫర్ ది నెక్స్ట్ లెవెల్. ఇఫ్ ది ఫౌండేషన్ ఈజ్ వీక్, naturally the next level is lost. So this is the important thing. Psychologically, it is cognitive level teaching. See, he says here, psychologically it is cognitive level. Cognition means it relates to the brain. So the brain is trained here to memorize and retain things and recall whenever you want that, and you retrieve information from your brain whenever you want that information. That means you have to so perfectly retain it in your brain. It's a chip. It's a I mean like our memory chip. So this is very, very important. It's a cognitive level teaching. It happens as a cognitive level teaching. Cognitive level teaching means it's the highest level of teaching. Though it appears memory level teaching appears to be the lowest level of teaching, as we said at the very beginning, it involves the highest training of the brain. This is the important observation to be made here. And study material is pre-planned and presented naturally. For children, which suits him, we have to replan it properly and prepare the teaching material, study material, and tell him. Then it is useful for children at lower level classes. Normally, this type of teaching learning process is going at the lower level classes in the elementary stages of education. Variety of teaching aids shall be used to raise curiosity in children. One more thing, always what we should ensure with children is that they should develop already they would have it, no doubt about it. మనం చూస్తుంటాం చిన్నపిల్లలు రకరకాల ప్రశ్నలు వేస్తారు. ఇన్ఫాక్ట్ పెద్దవాళ్ళు విసుకుడు ఏదోనోమి అంటాం మనం. అలా అనకూడదు. చిన్నపిల్లలు వేసే ప్రశ్నలకి మనం ఎంత ఓపికగా సమాధానం చెప్తే వాళ్ళలో ఆ కాగ్నిటివ్ మెకానిజం అంత చక్కగా డెవలప్ అవుతుంది. ఆ ఎనాలిటికల్ థింకింగ్ వాళ్ళకి అంత బాగా వస్తుంది అనమాట. దీన్ని మనం ఏమంటాం అంటే రేజింగ్ దేర్ క్యూరియాసిటీ. వాళ్ళకి ఆ క్యూరియాసిటీని చంపేయకూడదు. మంచిగా అనకూడదు. చక్కగా క్యూరియాసిటీని పెంచేలాగా మనం చెప్పాలి. ఇది చెప్పడానికి టీచర్స్ ఏం చేస్తారంటే టీచింగ్ ఎయిడ్స్ చూపిస్తారు. టీచింగ్ ఎయిడ్స్ చూపిస్తూ అంటే పిక్చర్స్ కానీ లేదా 3D మోడల్స్ కానీ ఏమైనా ఇటువంటివి చూపిస్తూ, ఆడియో విజువల్ ఎయిడ్స్ కానీ చిన్నవి చూపిస్తూ చక్కగా బొమ్మలు ఇవన్నీ చూపిస్తూ చెప్తే వాళ్ళకి ఒక ఇంక్విజిటివ్నెస్ వస్తుంది. మనం మంచి పుస్తకాలు అంటే వెస్టర్న్ సొసైటీలో చూస్తాం. వాళ్ళు చక్కగా వాళ్ళ పుస్తకాలు అందరూ చూసే ఉంటారండి. ఈ రోజుల్లో అమెరికా చదువుకునే పిల్లలు లేని వాళ్ళు ఎవరున్నారు? వాళ్ళు ఏ యానిమల్ స్కిన్ ఎలా ఉంటుంది, టచ్ ఎలా ఉంటుంది, అవన్నీ యాక్చువల్గా పెడతారు పుస్తకాల్లో. అవన్నీ ఎంత బాగుంటాయి వాళ్ళకి ఆ ఎయిడ్స్. సో విత్ ఆల్ సచ్ టీచింగ్ ఎయిడ్స్ we try to raise the curiosity or the inquisitiveness in the children so that their brain activity develops. Cognitive activity is triggered properly for better results in his higher levels of learning. So the next one is understanding level. Now we have seen a little bit, covered some points about the memory level teaching learning process. And now we'll look into the understanding level teaching learning process. When it comes to understanding level, what is involved here is grasping and comprehending. Means a thought process started here, a brain mechanism started here, a thought process is involved here. Grasp ante what teacher says, You should be able to grasp it and understand why teacher is saying that, what the teacher intends to convey to you by saying that. This is what we call comprehending what the teacher is trying to convey. You should be able to comprehend, and to comprehend first you should be able to grasp. So grasping and comprehending is involved basically, principally in understanding level of teaching learning process. Here, some important points are here. Giving large number of positive and negative examples of facts and concepts being presented. Here, the thing is, the teacher is explaining certain, here what we call is facts and concepts. We say a fact. How that fact is conceptualized. This is the relation. So when a fact is conceptualized, you should be able to show him certain proofs, certain examples, to make him believe this relation between the fact and the concept. This is what goes on here. You will be giving large number of positive and negative examples of facts and concepts being presented. Why I am saying like bullet points like this, and why I am stressing on each and every point, particularly reading through the point here, text here, is that all these points are given in your questions, in your question paper, in multiple choice questions. He says, giving, for example, now and then I told you that unless you read the subject thoroughly, don't look at the questions, because you will get puzzled or you will get confused. I said that, but it's my duty to tell you how the questions come at times, because why we are reading in this fashion also you should understand, is it not? So I'll be citing certain examples. For example, he says, citing positive and negative examples of facts and concepts is involved in, that is the question. Giving positive or negative examples exhaustively while teaching facts and concepts is involved at the level of teaching. Number 1, memory level. Number 2, understanding level. Number 3, reflective level. Number 4, autocratic level. ఇప్పుడు మీరు ఏం పెట్టాలండి? అప్పుడు you should remind yourself that it comes under understanding level. You have to mark the option of understanding level. Therefore, this is the manner in which you have to prepare for the UGC NET examination. So all these points are very important. Each point you try to digest it into your brain. Keep it aside into your brain. Don't think you are forgetting it. It appears that you forgot it after a few days. Whatever you now hear from me, you feel you forget it after a few days, but you don't forget. I assure you, when you see the options against a question, definitely your brain responds and you will get the answer. You will retrieve the answer. Don't worry, you will get it. But while listening to this, or afterwards you read this, when you read this, you try to digest it and feed it to your brain, feed it to your memory chip. That is very, very important. So then the next one is promotion of scope for seeking relationship among facts and ideas. How a fact should be and how you should develop your ideas according to the facts. You cannot go against the facts with your ideas. So promotion of scope for seeking relationship. You should be able to understand how you have to formulate your ideas based on the facts, actually facts on ground. This is what is important here. Then conducting discussions to examine the pros and cons of an issue. Here I said thought process started. When you are discussing a concept or an issue or a subject or a problem, you should conduct discussions. So if we suggest such and such a solution to such and such a problem, what happens? What happens? Afterwards, are there any negative effects by taking up this solution? Or is it totally positive? Is it useful or not? So this is, you have to discuss yourself. For when you are going for a solution to an issue, regarding the pros and cons of the proposed solution, you should have an elaborate discussion. And this happens only through your thought system. You have to carefully think and decide these things. That means you have to develop your thinking capacity. For thinking, first you should understand the issue. Providing opportunity to students to give their own interpretations of facts presented. The teacher says a fact. This is the fact. This is like this. The teacher explains. One student gets up and says, no, why sir, can it not be like this? And then the teacher should not discourage him or just snub him and ask him to sit down. This is how it is said here in books. I am saying it, just listen to me. Teacher should not say that. He should encourage the student to come out with his own interpretations and with his own prescriptions. That is important. In fact, certain new things also come with this sort of approach. So it is important that the students are given the independence to raise their own interpretations about the existing concepts for which the explanations existing are otherwise. We should encourage the students to come forth with their own interpretations or with their own explanations. Then teaching becomes an activity to promote seeing of relationships among facts and information. We get information and we know the facts, and what is the relationship between the fact and information. When you receive an information, you have to think factually, and can this information be believed depending upon the facts available, that you have to see here. So that means you have to draw a relationship between the fact and the information you received, and you should judge whether to accept the information or not. The teacher expects that students will be able to translate and interpret the meanings in their own words. Students, as I say, as we already seen above, we should allow the students to just give their own translations or interpretations about certain facts, existing facts, in their own terminology, The teacher gives a large number of examples to bring home the main ideas. Wherever you say any fact or you discuss any subject, you should be able to cite examples in support of what you are saying to enable the student to believe what you are saying, to believe in what you are saying. This is important. Then the teacher, it is basically devoted to helping students in seeing of relationships and tool use of a fact. అంటే ఇక్కడ కూడా ఇందాక మనం చెప్పుకున్నట్లు ఇక్కడ మీరు ఫ్యాక్ట్స్ కి ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్స్ కి అండ్ in ascertaining certain information you would be using certain tools అంటే కేవలం ఇన్స్ట్రుమెంట్స్ అనుకోకండి. These tools are also academic tools are also there. సో ఏ టూల్స్ ఏం వాడతారు, ఎట్లా చేయాలి, వీటి మధ్యన ఏమిటి అనేది అంతా కూడా ఇక్కడ మనకి తెలియాలి, వాడికి ఇంపార్ట్ చేయాలి అన్నమాట. ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎయిమ్డ్ అట్ ది కాన్సెప్చువలైజేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఐడియాస్ అండ్ ఫ్యాక్ట్స్. అంటే మీ ఐడియాస్ టోటల్ గా ఇంపాసిబుల్ ఐడియాస్ ఫామ్ చేసుకున్నందువల్ల ఉపయోగం ఏముంటుంది? దే షుడ్ కన్ఫార్మ్ టు ది ఫ్యాక్ట్స్, ది గ్రౌండ్ ఫ్యాక్ట్స్. సో అదొకటి మనం వాడికి ట్రైనింగ్ ఇవ్వాలి. దీనికి ఏమేమి మెథడ్స్ యూజ్ చేస్తారు అంటే టూల్స్ అంటే ఇవన్నమాట. లెక్చర్ మెథడ్, దెన్ లెక్చరింగ్ వైల్ డిమాన్స్ట్రేటింగ్, అంటే లెక్చర్ మెథడ్ లో లెక్చర్ చెప్తూ he would be making certain demonstrations. That means giving examples, practical examples, 3D examples for the student to believe in what you are trying to convey him. Then discussion, you drag the students into a discussion. Just don't leave them by what you are saying. Drag them, draw them into a discussion, and then you may get new ideas also from them. And they should be, by involving into discussions, the student's thought process, his brain mechanism gets activated, and he develops this thought process, and this analytical capabilities and the problem solving capabilities in the student increase. And then inductive to deductive. These induction and deduction methods, we'll see that means general to particular and particular to general. At times what happens is ఒక పర్టికులర్ థింగ్ చూసుకొని మనము దాన్ని జనరలైజ్ చేసేస్తాం మనం, అదొకటి. అలాగే ఒక్కొక్కసారి జనరల్ థింగ్ ని చూసి ఇది ఎలా ఉంది కనుక ఇది ఎలా ఉండొచ్చు అని చెప్తాం. సో వి మూవ్ ఇన్ బోత్ డైరెక్షన్స్. లుకింగ్ ఎట్ ఏ జనరలైజ్డ్ థింగ్, we draw certain particular conclusions, and at certain particular, looking at certain particular things, we draw some general conclusions. This is how it goes. So that is inductive to deductive. We'll look into this in a little bit detail later on. Then exampling and explaining. This is what already I said. To make the students understand the concepts, you have to give them examples and explanations. Various teaching aids like models, 3D models, maps, charts, pictures, etc. are used. And the next one is, this is reflective level. I'll just finish this and I'll stop there. So my 1 hour's time is almost over. So just this is a small thing. We'll complete this. We'll come to some extent. Also known as introspective level. Introspective level means the student checks himself, how far he has come, how far he has developed himself with reference to knowledge gained by him. He estimates himself, he evaluates himself. Deep thinking, he thinks into whatever he does. And then highest level of teaching. This is supposed to be the highest level of teaching because the teacher's role here is very, very limited. The principal role is the major role is of the student. That means for such a student with a large thinking capacity and who always involves about every aspect or every fact into deep thinking, how difficult it is for the teacher to guide such a student. He should be able to satisfactorily guide him. Otherwise, he puts so many questions. So this is the highest level of teaching. It's a challenge to the teacher, in other words. Issues are raised and discussed with a view to shift the potential rational solution of shift means SIFT shift. Shift means it is being able to realize, able to recognize the potential things. That is what we call shifting. So academic session, issues are raised and discussed with a view to shift the potential rational solutions of problems. So some problem is identified, some solution is programmed for that, some solution is also drawn for that. We will be getting variety of solutions. So many solutions are there for a problem. Which is the most apt solution for a particular problem is to be decided by discussion and a deep thinking only. Here, you have to make a deep discussion to know which is the actual. That is what is called shifting. To identify the correct thing, the most appropriate thing out of so many solutions available. Then academic sessions are conducted in a dialogic mode to explore and explain the basis of arguments. అంటే ఇక్కడ academic sessions చెప్పేటప్పుడు you should encourage things to the teaching learning process to go in a dialogic mode. Dialogic mode అంటే మనకి యాక్చువల్గా మన ట్రెడిషనల్ లెర్నింగ్ లో టీచింగ్ లెర్నింగ్ లో ఇదే ఉండేది. మనకు ఉపనిషత్తులన్నీ కూడా క్వశ్చన్ ఆన్సర్ మోడల్లో మాక్సిమం ఉంటాయి మనకు ఉపనిషత్తులు. ఎందుకుంటే అంటే దట్ ఈస్ ది బెస్ట్ సిస్టమ్ ఆఫ్ టీచింగ్. ఇది మన గురువులు పూర్వకాలంలో కనిపెట్టిన విషయమే. అది వాళ్ళు అలాగే వెళ్ళారు కూడా. అన్ని కూడా మన క్వశ్చన్ ఆన్సర్ సిస్టమ్ లో. దట్ ఈస్ వాట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ డయాలజిక్ మోడ్. ఇట్ ఈస్ ఇన్ ఏ క్వశ్చన్ ఆన్సర్ సిస్టమ్. సో వెనెవర్ you conduct an academic session with people at reflective level of understanding, at reflective level of learning, you have to encourage this dialogic mode. You have to invite questions from them. You put questions to them, and through this you develop those people. Then the pattern of communication involved is transactional communication. This is what I have already explained. Communication is a technical term. In this, there are several types of communications. One of them is transactional communication. Transactional communication means where there is a process of transfer and receive. This is the process. This is there at the reflective level of teaching learning process. When reflective level teaching and learning are successful, then a large store of tested insights of a generalized character and an enhanced ability to develop and solve problems on their own is developed. I think you understood this. What all we talked so far is about this. The student at the reflective level would be developed into a complete man to identify the problems, the real-time problems, the problems which come across in his regular life, in his routine, and finding solutions by himself for those problems. That is what is involved here in reflective level teaching learning process. Problem identification and solving is inculcated. I said the same thing. It is exclusively student-centered, neither teacher-centered nor subject-centered. In this teaching processes, there are three types here. One is called teacher-centered teaching training process, teaching learning process, and the student-centered teaching learning process, and the subject-centered teaching learning process. So where the focus is there, the name goes accordingly. When the teacher has the supreme role, it is teacher-centered. When the student has a supreme role, it is student-centered. And more than these two, learning a particular subject, if it is more important, the total focus is on the subject. There is no focus on either on the student or on the teacher. This is called subject centered. So with this, for today, I want to stop, because actually today I planned for 10 slides and we have completed only 8 slides. It doesn't matter. We go stable, no problem. I think you are able to understand what I am trying to convey to you. If you have any doubts, please you can make certain queries in our Jaygeez Brainary and in the Telegram app Jaygeez Brainary, single word, all small letters. That's a public group. Anybody can become a member by himself once he downloads the Telegram app, and that is a useful app. We can make all interactions there. If anybody has any doubts or queries, they can post in that, or our email ID is also there. Our institution's email ID is there. You can raise your mails, you can raise your queries through the mails. They will be answered. And I'll be communicating these notes to you, and you can read them afterwards. For the present, you just understand. I'll convert all these PPTs into PDFs, and I'll try to post them in the Jaygeez Brainary. You have to, whoever is interested and wants to proceed with this, you have to become a member of the Jaygeez Brainary group in the Telegram app, because all the material, study material would be posted there, because they cannot be sent individually. It's a big process. So rest we'll see in the next class. Our next class again on Friday. It continues on Saturday and Sunday also, 3 days, 2 hours a day, 4 to 5 in the evening is Sanskrit, 8 to 9 in the night is paper 1. Thank you very much. Good night. Bye for the present. I think you are able to follow what I said today. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.